to Know Better, Do Better. I'm your host, Mr. Ray Leonard Jr. It's good to see you all again. We have a phenomenal show planned today. Not only are we talking about someone that's inspirational, someone that has overcome so much, but also a good friend of mine for over 45 years. So when we talk about this show and what it's based upon, Know Better, Do Better, we're doing this just that. We want to make sure that we find the stories that matter to people and inspire people to be better. And we all have our struggles. We all go through things every single day of our life. But the fact of the matter is that we want to find out how we learn from our mistakes. We learn from our struggles, and we try to get better every single day. I always talk about the greatest thing about being present in the moment to tell your story is knowing that there's more to write. So today on Know Better, Do Better, we're talking about Walking Miracles. It's an organization that my friend has put together to support other families that have gone through cancer and gone through the struggles of what the families have to go through, and had to deal with that himself. Also have an amazing co-host today. She is a person that's helping me out with my new company, Ovations, as we talk about, but also is a major contributor to the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She is an attorney by trade. She is a chief civility officer. She does so much and just finished a TEDx talk. And she's a phenomenal person. So I want to welcome her to the show first and foremost. Sejal Thakkar to the show. Sejal, welcome.
Oh my God. Thank you, Ray. So excited to be here. Thanks for including me in this conversation. I cannot wait to learn more about Brett's story.
Absolutely. When we're talking about, a story like Brett's, and we talk about inclusion, accepting people and understanding people's struggles and battles and us trying to be better as people, that's kind of what we're doing today. And his story is amazing. When you hear the journey, like you haven't heard someone with so much joy and vigor from going through what have gone through. So, without further ado, I want to bring Brett on, Brett Wilson, the founder of Walking Miracles.
Hi everyone, how are we?
Hey Brett, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Phenomenal. So we just talked earlier about how long we've known each other, and how most people don't have that story to friends and people that they talk to or stay engaged with for this long. And our story is a little different. So I want to welcome you to the show. Well, first and foremost, I want to tell everybody, ask the question to you: who is Brett Wilson?
Well, that's a easy answer and a complicated answer. So, I am originally from West Virginia. I'm from Charleston, West Virginia, originally, and I was diagnosed in 1974 at the age of 2 with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Excuse me. uh, I had leukemia at 2, and then I had non-Hodgkin's at 9. But when I had my leukemia in 1974 at the age of 2, I ended up having to have chemo and radiation for 5 years. And during that journey, probably about 1978, 77, 79, is when I had the great pleasure of meeting your dad. And when I met your dad the first time, I met him through Archie Talley, and my story started as far as gaining hope for myself as a kid with cancer, because cancer as a child is really hard in trying to fit in with other people and do those kind of things. And you're sort of kind of fighting a battle, not only with your own personal health, but then you're trying to fight the public and trying to get them to understand, what actually is going on, and not living off this fake news situation, if you use that word, of terminology, like someone can get it or don't get around them or whatever the case may be. Plus, there were all kinds of physical changes that were going on in my body that I didn't understand. And it was through meeting your dad and meeting with Archie, as far as that goes, that gave me that hope during that time, because I didn't have a lot of people to look up to at that point. Then you came along, and then we just kind of sorted kind of became best friends as we got older and kept in touch with each other. And it's been inspirational to me to be able to have the relationship that I have been able to have with you and your dad for as long as we have. I was very blessed when we first were able to get your dad to come to our first gala, which I never believed would happen. But, after dealing with my non Hodgkin's um, in 1981, I had, like I said, 5 years of chemo and radiation for my leukemia battle. And then when I had my non Hodgkin's, I'm very sensitive, Ray, to anesthesia. And what ended up happening was my tongue swells and it blocks my airway. And they couldn't get an intubation tube down my throat. And I blue coded twice because of that. So everyone kind of left me on the table, so to speak, for dead. And we had the anesthesiologist who happened to be a good friend of my mother, and his wife was my mother's best friend, and he stayed with me to help me to revive me. And once that happened, and I finished my treatment at 12, my grandmother, who is now no longer with us, called me a walking miracle, and that's where the name Walking Miracles came from.
Man, phenomenal. So I don't. Before we get ahead of each other, I want to talk about you getting diagnosed with cancer at 2 years old, back in the late '70s, early '80s, having to deal with that and go through treatment. What was that like? I mean, we met, and I kind of saw your courage and your energy. Like, you didn't let it get you down, even though you were going through all that stuff. But what was
Yeah.
that like when you first had to deal with that? Because I know you didn't get the best diagnosis to say, here, you had a long time to be here.
No, they originally told my parents that I would have 6 months to live because they had just started doing research about leukemia in around 1967 at Dana Farber Institute. So it was still new. And back when I was treated, they basically gave the kitchen sink. They didn't minimize what they gave, they just were trying to keep people alive. And of course, my folks, my dad is a school teacher, had a master's degree. My mom was a school teacher. She had a master's degree. Neither one of them were prepared for what does that look like. And so, as a child, it was hard to understand because I was so young. So I don't know exactly how all that kind of worked and transpired for me, but my attitude was always a positive attitude. I acted like there was nothing wrong, but yet, I know there were times that it were because I was so young. It wasn't until I became, a little bit older, around 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, that I started putting stuff together because I finally could understand what was going on. But I know that from my parents' perspective, from discussing things with them, they were devastated because they had my brother, who's 5 years older than I am, in 1967, and then they had me, and then they're saying, "Oh my gosh, we have this child," and my mom, living in West Virginia, isn't the greatest place in the world to be diagnosed with something like that, and then back then the treatments that were more advanced were in places like Boston or Philadelphia or other bigger cities, which we were, 8, 9, 10 hours away from. And even St. Jude's was 8, 9 hours, and not necessarily were we able to get to St. Jude's, if that makes sense. And so my parents were kind of at a standstill as to what to do, and you don't really question it, Ray. They say, we got to do this for your kid, and you say, okay. And that you really don't understand when they say, now we're going to be giving them some real heavy stuff. You don't really look at what does that mean. When they say we're giving you chemo and radiation, you don't really know what that is or how that's going to impact you years later, but you do it anyway, and then you say, well, we'll deal with it then. So that's kind of what it was. And they didn't have any resources, right? They didn't have anybody to help them. They didn't have anybody to guide them. And then my mom and dad divorced when I was 5. And so that was kind of hard. And, I was living with a single mom, and, my mom was taking me to treatments and stuff. And, she wasn't working. And thank goodness my dad and mom loved each other enough that my dad always paid child support and took care of us so that we could have what we needed. But it was still a struggle on my mother as a single mother trying to deal with this.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wasn't a single mother, but understanding how single mothers have to they figure it out. They find a way for their babies. So, Sejal, I would have to ask you.
You're not a single mother, but I am.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring you in for that. Like, how would that affect you? Like having that with your child that early on.
Well, I mean, I can totally relate to what you're saying, Brett, because I'm a single mother, and I've been in situations where doctors are saying, do this, or give your son this. And I mean, even just as recent as the COVID, whether to give them a vaccine or not, just a simple thing like that. And you're scared because you're like, I'm relying on their expertise. And I know, especially back then in the 70s when you were going through it, I mean, there was far less of any support resources back then. But even now, it seems like there isn't a lot. So that's why when I was reading the information you shared with me, I was like, people need to know that you're out there because it's really not known to the mainstream. I mean, I went to law school and everything, and I've got a lot of family members that are doctors, and I didn't know that there were resources available for this. And I think it was about like 8 or 9 years ago, I actually did the Team in Training Marathon to support the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And even back then, they were saying there wasn't much available as resources and support. So I'm really glad that you're doing this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Living in West Virginia, it's so rural. It's like certain parts of California, it's like, okay, how do I get to San Diego when I live at the bottom of California?
Right.
How much is it going to cost us? What about how much food? Who am I going to? And like with Sejal, I hope I pronounced that right. How many kids do I have to pack in the car to take with me because I don't have a babysitter? I don't have somebody to take care of these kids, and I've got to drive 2 to 3 hours one direction to get up there. And, okay, well, maybe I can stay at the Ronald McDonald House. Well, now that's not an option for a lot of people because they have a waiting list now that they've never had before. And, if no one really knows what to do or where to go, it makes it really difficult. And, I think that society and statistically, childhood cancer is minimized on a national level because it doesn't generate the revenue that, say, an adult cancer would generate for like a hospital system or whatever. But if you ask Sejal as a single mother, if that was her child that was diagnosed, she's going to say the exact opposite, but they can't see it from her point of view as to what is she dealing with her daily life. And that kind of thing. And so it just really is something that I think that, they give these small percentages about that. But, Ray, you have kids, don't you?
I got 4 of them.
Okay. So here's the question. If one of your kids passed away because of something like this, is that minimal to you?
Absolutely not.
Right. So then if you had the one, that's going to impact the whole family.
Right.
Not just you, but your other children and your wife, right? And all of your dad, your mom, your stepmom, their grandmother, however many people are all affected by this, and it affects the whole family dynamic as part of this whole thing, and people just don't get it. And like Sejal was saying, for us in West Virginia, even in helping the people that we're helping, we have 3 places for people to go: Morgantown, Charleston, and Huntington, and they're all spread out across the state of West Virginia, within 3 to 4 hours of each other.
Right.
And we have people that, just don't have the income to do stuff. And West Virginia pays one of the lowest wages for people in the country.
Yeah.
So, as a dad, I can't imagine what it would be like trying to pay the bills on one income if you've established a lifestyle and you've gotten married and you have these kids, and now all of a sudden, what we found in doing the research that we've done for all these years, right? 40% of the bring home income goes to pay for gas, food, and lodging.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well, if you got that coming out, how are you gonna pay the rest of your bills?
And that's one of the amazing things that your organization does. And so you have to go through with your family and so avoid and where things are. We're going to talk about walking a little bit more later. Um, but when we came to West Virginia, and so we talked about Archie Talley. Archie Talley was a Winston-Salem State basketball player that played with the Harlem Globetrotters as a legend, and my friend with my dad. So that's how we ended up in the area. But it's some people when you meet them, you just have a spirit. So when I met Brett and his spirit, we talked about his going through, but the the energy that's still there to want to continue to help others. I mean, you don't find that too many places. And so I wanted to highlight kind of what his story is and what he's doing and what he's been doing for years and years. You've been fighting for a long time. Fighting for a long
Yeah,
time.
I've done this for 20 years because, well, first and foremost, I'm a faith-based person, right?
Right.
I know why I'm here, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. No one goes through what I did themselves. No one.
Well, you had 6 months there. You had 6 months to live, and now
Well, 6 months to live, and then when you blue code twice, which basically means you die on the table. Like, what? I'm not Superman. I can't just magically snap my fingers or be Doctor Strange or whatever it is, that Marvel character, and bring myself back to life. I don't have that power, and so I know that someone greater than me had a purpose for me to be able to come and be the shining light to other people. And I'm just excited to be able to try to share that with people, to let people know that there is hope. And I'm just hoping to grow that and make it brighter for other people.
once you came back from the cold, and you had a moment there where you almost thought you were on the road to full recovery out of the woods, and then there comes a relapse. Tell us about what does that do emotionally and physically and mentally to you?
Ray, I never understood what that meant, honestly, when I was in, we'll say, grade school and all that. My family had always called me a walking miracle. My uncle was a Methodist minister. There was always a lot of stuff that was, God had worked miracles in my life. My grandmother called me a walking miracle because she was a faith believing person, and all of them kind of knew that there was something special about me, but I never really picked up on what that something special was because I was so inundated, Ray, with this lack of understanding of people. And what people don't understand too about, I think, where you're going with this, you know, I found out when I was 12 that I was not going to be able to have children. My growth plates closed. Everything changed physically in my body. I was on years of prednisone, which ironically led me to have type 2 diabetes now. Your dad has an organization that helps people with diabetes. I had no idea that type 2 diabetes could be as a result of prednisone, which is a steroid. And, now I'm dealing with that now. There are so many long term effects that people can't see. It's kind of like working with autistic children. I have a master's in counseling, and, I've worked in the service field for years, and I loved counseling people. And then I helped people that had disabilities find work. and all of these jobs that I've had and all of these things that I've done, God's kind of given me these things on purpose to be able to kind of build my whole life around, and going through life with a kid with cancer, unfortunately, society loves to label people.
Mm.
And I hate labels, Ray. And, oh, that's the kid with cancer. Stay away from him or don't get around him. And what happened in my process anyway was I began to isolate myself from other people because I felt I wasn't good enough to be around other people. So it wasn't until I got older that I realized what the light was, because before growing up, I was really confident because I was just like, man, I've been through two cancers and I'm alive, and you're not going to touch me.
Yes,
And
right.
I used to have that idea and I used to tell you that, and we used to run around and play like nothing was wrong. But it's kind of like children with autism. They look great on the outside, but you don't know what's happening to them on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
The house always looks great on the outside, but you don't know if it has any furniture on the inside, right?
Right, absolutely.
And so the thing of it is, it broke me.
Mm.
And there were times that I had nowhere to go to relate to people, right?
Right.
I couldn't talk to my mom because my mom wouldn't have understood. She would have tried to protect me in her own way and tell me, well, people do and people don't. And then when you see what people do, it's don't do what I say what I do, or I might have that bass backwards, but yet you watch the actions of other people and what they say, and then their actions don't follow along, and you're like, um, this is not right.
Mm.
And then it's kind of like being gaslighted, I guess, in the sense that you're crazy because you think about these things when you know what you see and you know what you feel and you read people, you know, and it's kind of like,
Preach.
you can, I mean, it's deep. You don't talk to them up here, Ray. You're in their soul, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get in there, and you're like, something's off, but I don't know what that is, right? And so as I was growing and I was getting older, I was watching all these things. I never really had the ability like a normal child to go out and have multiple friends, right? And I
Right.
know growing up, like as you were growing up, probably with your dad, you didn't know how many people liked you for you or how many people liked you because of your dad, right? And so it was kind of hard in relating together with this whole thing. You know, I I I'm Ray Leonard's son, but like nobody really knows me. They know me through my dad. Well, that's the same thing that I went through with my parents. People knew my parents, but they didn't know me, Ray. They didn't know who I was as a person.
Yeah.
And then, living in that spotlight, and I may be going off a thing, so stop me and redirect me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I may be going off a key on this, but my stepdad was an attorney. That's a that's a status position that you got to really watch how you act, and you got to really watch what you're doing, because we don't want to make an embarrassment of this, right?
Right.
So there's certain things you're allowed to do and certain things you aren't allowed to do. Well, that just adds to the pressure, Ray.
Mm. So say,
How do I fit in with all that?
yeah. Then that's why I want to ask you, say, like you train and talk about this about culture, better cultures of and you talk about the era of exclusion and not inclusion, and looking at people differently. Like what where does that come from?
I don't even know, but Brett, when I was listening to you, it's like you're getting to the core of the issue, right? Like I don't know, it's this whole like us versus them mentality, right? That is ingrained into our cultures. So like when you see people who are different, right? Like you said, you hate stereotypes, and we end up like labeling people, and that's what you're describing, both of you, right? Being labeled as someone other than who you truly are, and so we're just kind of now helping people understand something that both of you already know, right? That this isn't something that we're told as we're growing up to be you, and don't worry about how everyone else is labeling you. And that's exactly what I think the core of this whole discussion that's going on is really like stop stereotyping and labeling people. Instead, let's design, whether it's the medical, the support, the resources around the individual person, and let's make that accessible to everybody. I mean, that's really what I think underlies all of this stuff, right? Is how do we help people for who they are, not these labels that our society is putting on them.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's really,
Hold on. I'm gonna go to a quick break. I gotta put the commercial break in here really quick.
okay.
It's gonna be 1 minute, but we'll come back and then we'll finish the discussion.
Yeah, that's
Nobody
yeah.
do it. This is Ray Leonard Jr. Hey, welcome back to Know Better Do Better. I'm your host, Ray Leonard Jr. We've been having phenomenal discussion with Brett Wilson, Sejal Thakkar, and myself. We're talking about walking miracles. We're talking about Brett's story, which is phenomenal and amazing. And if you need to be inspired, you just need to go and find out a little bit more about his journey. But before we left to commercial, we were talking about how it feels to be excluded, the judgment and stereotypes and things like that. I'm sure that had to affect your parents as well, Brett. We talk about our personal feelings, and then the hurt is deep and it's real to be excluded or be judged. But how does that affect your family?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, Ray, because I'm getting ready to come out here in June with a book about my life. And I had a ghostwriter reach out to me from West Virginia and say, "Hey, I'd like to interview you. I've read a little bit about your story," and he's like, "I don't think you really understand the impact of what you've been through and how you can help other people." And I was like, "Okay, well, years ago, I looked at doing a book." And I wanted to interview my mom and my dad and my brother and my grandmother so they could give their perspective on my life and how cancer impacted our family as a whole, right? And this guy was talking to me in this book, and he was talking to my mom and he did an interview with my mom, and I was like, "Don't tell me what you talk to her about, or don't tell her, you know, that kind of thing." But I kind of knew, Ray, my mom, now the new word is ghosting.
Mm.
Before, when people found out about my mom and dad having me as a child with cancer, every friend or several friends automatically ghosted them.
Yeah.
Now, there were multiple reasons for people saying that. Well, we don't know what to say. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to do. But I think the real reality in life, Ray, is it was too real. My child could get this. I don't really want to talk about what would happen if my child got this. We'll just leave that with them. And my mom was devastated because she would try to call other people to get support and help psychologically, mentally, whatever, and just talking to people, other girlfriends that she had, other women that she knew, and they wouldn't call her back. And my dad, of course, my dad was a teacher and a baseball coach. So my dad didn't have the capability in his head to understand really what the impact of this was. So my dad just kind of like, dropped it like a rock, man. He just, went off and figured out his own way to psychologically deal with this because he didn't know what to do either. My dad, I'm guessing now. I don't know this for a fact, so I'm not trying to be negative, but I probably guess my dad didn't understand the doctor speak that was way up here because my dad, just wouldn't have caught on to that. He wouldn't have understood. He would have to probably have my mom interpret what did he just tell us, in that kind of situation. And I think that, this this whole thing is, I've had people that have said to me where when, it just in assisting people with what we do, well, the doctor thinks I'm an idiot, and these are wives that are saying this, or these are the moms that are seeing these doctors, and the doctor was talking down to me, and he dismissed me, and da 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 da, and I was like, well, ask Sejal in her house, who's the doctor in her house? She is. She's the one that's watching her kid.
Right.
He's the one that knows what's going on, not the guy she's taking them to down the street that's seeing people. She is. She's the one that's taking the temperatures. She's the one that's running the kids to the ER and all of that stuff, and that's one of these things where there's this separation of well, I don't know, and I may not have Ray a medical degree from Stanford, and I may not be, and I have an IQ 444 or whatever the greatest person would have, or I'm no Einstein by any means or what have you, but I'm not stupid, Ray.
Right.
And just because I don't have a doctor behind my name doesn't mean I don't understand what this stuff does to people. And I think my challenge for other people in receiving me instead of me repelling them is, Ray, you've known me 49 years. There's nothing I've hidden from you.
Right.
I'm as honest as I can be about everything because I feel that's the way I need to be as a person. I'm not embarrassed by anything that I've been through. I'm blessed for going through what I have and being able to explain it to other people because maybe I can speak it in a level that somebody else can't speak it to.
So I want to hit you right there. I want to grab you right there when you're saying that because you had gone through enough, you'd survived, enough, and you were an inspiration. Just your story itself. But then you created an organization to help others. Like, where did that come from? Because so many people would go through something that you've gone through and say, okay, I've overcome it. That's enough. I just need my time. It's enough to try to go in and start doing things for other people.
Mhm.
Where did that come from? I mean, I know where it came from. I know, I know who you are. But where did that come from to say, okay, I need to do something?
But this is going to sound really strange, and probably no one will ever listen to the podcast. And I'll probably be outcast on CNN and all these news channels if I reveal the truth to you. But I will. Um, I when I blue coded twice, Ray, and I don't talk about this very often. Um, I saw a hand come through the light, and I knew I had a mission. And I watched the hurt on my mom's face, and I watched the impact on how it hurt my dad, and I watched the impact of how we couldn't even discuss it and talk about it. And I said to my mom when I was 12, I was like, Mom, one day I'm going to create a center that helps people so this isn't so hard for them. And I can help people. Now, I had no idea that there's a number one bestseller in the world, Ray. It's been on everybody's bookshelf. I'm not going to name the book because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But there's power in some of the verbiage in that book. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time that I was actually speaking into existence what I wanted to happen years later.
Mm.
but it had to go through a certain timing and a certain way and a certain undoing to get me to that point. I had been advocating for cancer patients and cancer survivors for 20 years before people heard me. I had talked to people across the country. I had called you. I had called your dad. Do you know anybody that I could work at a cancer center? Do you know anywhere that I could do this? Ray, do you know anybody that I could talk to? And we did this for 20 years. We did this. There were times I didn't even have your right number, but I was going to aggravate you till I got what I needed to get, and your dad too, until I could figure this out because I was searching, Ray.
Right.
How do I help myself? No one's helping me. How do I do this? And no one was listening. And that frustration just fueled me. And so I'll never forget, I was at a state conference in West Virginia, and this was about 2010. And the big word at the time was patient navigation services. And it had just started by a gentleman who was in Harlem who was helping breast cancer patients in Harlem, and they couldn't get breast exams. So he was giving them for free or helping for free. And I got to go there to Harlem for training. And then I got to see the program in action at the Ralph Lauren Cancer Center through Dr. Freeman. And so I came back, man, and I was fired up, and I came to West Virginia, and I was talking to my friend that was part of the State Cancer Coalition, and I said, we need to do a patient navigation conference. You're not going to believe how this can help people. And so we had our first conference. There was about 40 people. Everybody was talking. And the guy that I'm working with, he says, so who are we going to get to speak at the next one? I was like, I already know. And he goes, what do you mean you already know? I was like, you're going to call Dr. Freeman, and he's going to come to West Virginia. And then you're going to call Live Strong. And this is before Lance had his problems and all that stuff with that organization. I said, you're going to call them because they just put the first navigation center in Austin together. And that's what's going to happen. And I need you to get on the phone and make phone calls. And they looked at me and said, it's not going to happen, Brett. They're not coming to West Virginia.
They didn't know who they were talking to.
So I was like, at the time, Pfizer was big into investing a lot of money into this stuff. And so I had a guy locally that was helping. And I was like, go, get on the telephone and call these two people and get them booked because they're coming to this conference. And the guy at Pfizer said, Brett, they're not coming to Flatwoods, West Virginia. Nobody comes to West Virginia. They're not coming. And I was getting frustrated, Ray, and I was not taking no for an answer. So finally they called, and he called the one guy. Well, I had already called the vice president of operations, Livestrong, and said, hey, I'm here. Here's what we're trying to do. Can you get me somebody, please? Because this is so important for our people to know here. This program will change healthcare in West Virginia if we can get it together. So they called Livestrong and they said, hey, this is so-and-so, and I'm working with Pfizer, and we're trying to get people, and we want to know if you'll have somebody come to West Virginia for this conference. I said, yeah, we already know about it. We'll be there, and here's the person that's going to come. And they were like, oh, okay. So then he picks up the phone, and Dr. Freeman at the time, Ray, was one of the most heralded people in medical history because he was a breast cancer surgeon. And he was very well known, right? And at one point, he was the president of the American Cancer Society. I mean, you talk about a guy with credentials and stuff. He had more than a thermometer. But, my point being, it's kind of crazy. So they called him up and they said, Dr. Freeman, will you come to West Virginia for this engagement? We're doing patient navigation. He said, West Virginia. And Jim Dembski from Pfizer said, yeah, he said, Brett Wilson's inviting you to come. Will you be here? And he said, yes, I'll be there. And Jim said, what? I told Dr. Freeman that he was coming to West Virginia when I left training. And I said to him, Dr. Freeman, you need to come to West Virginia. Our people really need this program. So all of a sudden we have this meeting, right? We had 80 people in attendance, Ray. Things were buzzing, everybody was excited. And the guy that I was working with the coalition was standing in the back of the room with my mother, and my mother didn't come to much. And he started laughing. And Mom said, well, what are you laughing about? She's like, this whole thing. And she was like, well, it's wonderful. And I don't understand. And he's like, these people shouldn't be here. And Mom looked at him and said, what do you mean? He's like, Brett's the one that put all this together. And my mom said, okay. And she said, can I ask you a question? And he said, yes. And she said, why are you in such disbelief that this is happening? Why is it so hard for you to believe this? And he said, it just, before he could get out the answer, she said, did you tell him no? And Jim said, yeah, I told him it would never happen. She said, you never tell him that it'll never happen. to prove you wrong. Now, Ray, I had that. That didn't come from me. That came from another source because I was able to carry that,
Mm-hmm.
But recently I was reading a book and and the title of the book was What Happened to You, and it's about trauma. And it was written co-jointly with Oprah and a gentleman named Dr. Perry.
Right.
And they were talking about how children perceive trauma in different ways and that kind of thing. And it didn't hit me until that, till all this stuff is happening that, there's a reason that everybody goes through the seasons that they go through. But we all need to be accepted for who we are as individual people. We all need to be respected for who we are, no matter what our, skin color is or what our, genders are or any of this stuff, because God made us all. Every one of us. There's nothing different between me and you as individual people, because really, if you took all of our skins off and all of our bones off, it's our souls that are talking to everybody anyway. And so that's kind of where that came from. You asked that question, and that's kind of where that came from. But life can beat that out of you, Ray.
Yeah.
And it did for me for a long time, and I would never call you at the times. I would always look like I was doing great on the outside, but there were times that I had problems with depression. There were times that I lost belief in myself. There were times that I had anxiety about different things and that kind of stuff. And I didn't have anybody really to talk to about it because, I always would. I reverted back to my old school. Brett's just fine, right? But Brett's not just fine,
Right.
And unfortunately, and I know that Sejal will understand this as a mother. When you're dealing with an illness like my mom and I did, everybody had to pretend like they were fine because she didn't want to see me depressed, and I didn't want to see her depressed because it would feed off of each other. And when you're going through an illness like that, you got to be really careful about how you're working with individuals, right? And so the stress just becomes even more touchy. So
Yeah. And you talk about having that what we think is a silent strength, when we think we can't talk to anybody, or we want to just hold it in and say we can handle it, and we're not built that way. I mean, nobody's built that way to not be able to let it out and hold all that stuff. And we talk about it,
and especially as kids,
Yeah.
they need to feel that they can come to their parents and talk to things about it and not be, blown off or whatever, or you're in fantasy land, because for a long time, Ray, I'll be honest with you, the example that I used for myself is I felt like I was the kid on the island of misfit toys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I loved it.
We play that in common. When I was showing something different on the outside, but the inside, I felt like nobody had the same story, or nobody would understand what I was going through.
Yeah, and I'm sitting on this island, and we're all, we're all hurt, we're all broken, we're all this, we're all that, and nobody's listening, and everybody's over on the big island partying and having a good time and faking life, and here I am over here in the middle, and all of us are kind of like, but none of us are talking to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
We follow, and it's just kind of, makes you think about that. And when I read this book, I was like, oh my God, there's some stuff in here about me.
Mm.
And it was really funny because at the point that that happened was probably about a month ago, and a friend called out of the middle of the blue, and she's like, "Where did you go?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "I watched you all your life. You're gone. Where'd you go?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm sitting right here." She's like, "No, you're not." And that's when I got to the point, Ray, that I had to realize that that fire that I had before had to come back because I can't worry about other people and their opinions on what that fire does for me to move forward.
Mm. We're gonna have to leave it right there. I think that is a perfect spot because we're gonna do a part two. Because I got so much more I want to get to. I know Sejal got so much more let's get to, but we have to break it into our time sections. But
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
phenomenal, amazing job that you did telling your story. We're going to get this out there and make this really big, and we'll do a two-parter. So we're going to schedule for the second phase of this.
Okay.
You're looking great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you feeling better?
I'm feeling a lot better. And before we cut loose, because I know we got to do it really quickly, just so people know this, I was in the I am in the area of transitioning, and the reason that I am is medically, my life was turned upside down by my illness, and it got to a point that hormonally my body was not doing things the right way. And it was a choice that I made on my own. I didn't. No one forced me. I wasn't reading internet stuff. And oh, that sounds like a great thing to do. Yay, that sounds good. My name's not RuPaul, and I wasn't trying to make a statement. I mean, I was doing this because I had already been on the dark side, and I had already lived the other way without having my hormones balanced. And I was uneducated about that, and I had to do something for myself. And I did, and I've never felt better about myself. And I've gained a lot more confidence about me. So I'm excited about this next one we're going to do, and I appreciate your time tonight. And I just appreciate you as a person, and you know, keeping in touch with me. And Sejal, I'm just so excited that you're working with Ray, and your insight is invaluable because you bring an insight from a whole different perspective as a mother and a single mother, and for what you study. And I think it's so important at this time that people understand we have to stop labeling people and accept people. Because when I think of love and I think of that word love, I think of God's love, and God's love is unconditional no matter who we are or what we look like. And I think we sort of kind of need to get back to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm super proud of you. For everything that you've done. This is even more so because you're taking everything into your hands and being proud of who you are, and I love you. And we're gonna talk real soon and get the second phase, the second part of it.
I appreciate
I figured I knew that you will need at least 2 or 3 episodes.
I'm always happy to be on here, and I have always something to say. There's never a quiet time.
I told Sejal that too.
So that's perfect.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. This is Know Better, Do Better. Brett Wilson, Walking Miracles, Sejal Thakkar, and I'm Ray Leonard Jr. We'll be back soon, and you guys will hear part 2 and maybe 3 and maybe 4. So as we go on. But thank you all for joining. We'll be back soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.